Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast. On this podcast, we explore the power of leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to make our lives better. And no matter what better means to you, the pages inside books and notebooks can help us get there. So, each week, we'll mix together books, notebooks, mindful practices, and creativity to cultivate a life we love. Now, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. On this podcast, we talk about how to make our reading and writing lives better. And better is defined by you. Is it a more well-rounded reading and writing life? Is it finding more time to read and write? Is it finding your people and really boosting your reading and writing communities? Whatever it is, those are the things we talk about here on the podcast. And today we're going to talk about one thing that I know for sure makes my own reading and writing life better. And that is exploring the backstory. So what do I mean by that? I love learning about the backstories of people that I meet. I love knowing why they chose the career they did. I love knowing why they are landed in the particular area of the world they are. I just love knowing the backstory because it helps me understand the person more. And I especially love knowing the backstory of the authors that I adore. I love knowing why they became writers in the first place, how they became writers and how they make reading and writing a part of their life, how they came up with the idea for their latest book, and how they navigate all the challenges of doing so. For me, when I know the backstory, I feel like I'm more connected to the author and therefore more connected to the book, and therefore the book is more connected to me. And I am more apt to think about the book differently and to bring the lessons from the book into my daily life than I am if I just picked it up and didn't know anything about the backstory. So I am constantly looking for nuggets of authors' backstories. I love browsing authors' websites online to find that information. I follow just about every author that I read on social media. I even have a special Twitter list for my children's literature authors so that I can go to Twitter and only see what I want to see. I click on my list, I browse my favorite authors, and I get inspiration and those backstory nuggets that I love. Now, FYI, you can follow my Twitter list if you'd like. You can just head to Twitter, find me at AfinitoLit, and then click the list button. You can see the different lists that I have available. Click on the children's literature authors, follow it, and then whenever you want an instant hit of your author's inspiration or backstories for Kidlit, then you can just click on that list and browse and only see that. It kind of gets rid of the messiness of Twitter and instead just lets you focus on what you want to focus on. And for me, I love focusing on the backstory. So when a Get Literate member, in fact, the very first Get Literate member I ever had, when she emailed me and said, hey, the theme of the month inside our Get Literate Patreon community is explore. And I would like to challenge you to flip the script this month. And she asked if she could interview me to explore more about how and why and where Get Literate came to be and all those details. I was so excited because someone wanted to know my backstory. So that's what we're doing today. In today's episode, Dawn and I had a conversation that Dawn led right from the start about all things literacy, all things Get Literate, and all things me. How and why and where I got to this point, why I have alitlife.com, why I have the podcast, why I have this Patreon community, how I choose the books, how I choose the extra experiences, all of the things. And while we primarily focused on reading for this episode, I have a feeling we could do the same thing for writing and have just as much fun. So, without further ado, I am going to press play on the conversation I had with Dawn. And if you are listening on the day that this published, it is 4th of July. And so while we celebrate the origin story of our country, you can help me celebrate the origin story of Get Literate. And if you like what you hear, Dawn and I share how you can join our community at the end of the episode. So let me turn it over to Dawn.
Hi, everyone. I'm a book lover, coffee drinker, and mood reader that gets distracted by all the shiny new releases. You might be wondering where Stephanie is, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let me begin by telling you how I met Stephanie, the actual host of the Get Literate podcast. I'm a literacy coach in Michigan, and right when the world started shutting down in March of 2020, we were all scrambling and Googling and trying to figure out how to keep school going. I stumbled across Stephanie's book, Literacy Coaching, Transforming Teaching and Learning with Digital Tools and Technology. And I found it to be the perfect book and decided to host a Zoom book club with my other coaches in the district. Well, one of the coaches posted something on Facebook about our book club going on, and Stephanie commented that she'd be glad to come on to our Zoom meeting. We were so excited to meet her, and right away, I could tell that she was someone that loved reading, writing, technology, and everything that we needed to help us get through these crazy times. She was a pure delight. I still say that she's one of the hidden gems that I found during the pandemic, and I'm so glad that we became bookish friends over these past 3 years. Well, as I mentioned, I am one of the original members of the Patreon community, and over the past month, our theme has been explore. And while thinking about that word this past month, I had the idea of flipping this podcast script. So, with letting us explore and learn a little more about Stephanie and all the fun things that she does for the Patreon community. So, Stephanie, are you ready for this?
I am so ready for this. I have been looking forward to it, and you truly are literally the first member in the Patreon community. So you definitely get that OG labeled on.
Okay, I'll take it. All right. So in 2021, you published your second book, Leading Literate Lives. And in this book, you really speak to us about cultivating our reading and writing habits, honoring our reading and writing hearts, along with strengthening our reading and writing communities. So I thought it'd be fun to start us off if you tell us a little bit about your personal journey on becoming what we call a literacy influencer.
I love that term that you came up with, a literacy influencer. I gotta put that on my business card and stamp it around. So I, like many of us in the community, have been a reader forever. You know, I loved reading as a kid. I much preferred to read rather than do anything else growing up. Spent lots of hours inside of the library, in the bookstore. And so I always knew that I wanted to have reading and writing part of my life, part of what I did. And so from a really young age, I remember telling my teacher in kindergarten that I was going to be just like her and I was going to be a teacher, which is what I did. And I was lucky enough to not just be a teacher, but to spend my days just reading and writing with kids as a literacy specialist. But as I did that position, I realized there was so much more about teaching kids to read and teaching kids how to love to read and want to read that I didn't know yet. So back to school I went. I ended up getting my PhD in reading, and in that process, fell in love with the role of a reading coach, which is someone who works not just with kids, but primarily with teachers to help them bring the joy of reading to kids. In that position, I was lucky enough to work with multiple school districts, lots of literacy coaches, lots of school districts, and really get some insight into how reading works, how we teach it, and how we learn to love it and how we don't, and what are the best practices to really bring a rich reading life to life, and why we would want to do that in the first place. But especially over the pandemic, I realized that while I love the art of coaching, I really wanted to actually do more specific coaching of teachers and coaches on their own reading lives. I did a professional development workshop where I was tasked with teaching teachers how to better teach reading in their classrooms. And instead of doing the typical professional development workshop where you just tell them what they need to do and hope that they bring some really great things to their practice, instead, we spent the entire summer in a children's literature book club reading. We read books, we talked about them, we reacted to them in different ways. And by the end of that experience, the teachers themselves were coming up with things that they wanted to change in their classroom based on their experiences as readers. And it was at that moment that I realized that was a much more powerful way to work with teachers, to work with anybody, is to just experience it for yourself and then figure out from that, what would you want to bring to kids? And I loved that. And ever since that moment, that's exactly what I've tried to do. I work primarily with teachers who want to be the best literacy teachers they can be. And I think in order to do that, you need to give them their own really rich, joyful reading lives, but not just teachers. And that's where Get Literate comes in. I want to do this everywhere with everyone. I really believe that books and reading can help you just lead a better life, right? Help you grow through what you go through, help you choose a bigger life, help you find a new hobby, whatever it is. I think books and reading are tools to do that. And my personality really fits books and reading as tools to do that, as is yours, Dawn.
Thank you.
And I've realized that the best way for me to do that is to hold myself accountable in a really great way. And so starting the podcast, starting the blog, it was my way of ensuring that I did the reading and writing that I wanted to do, because then I was sharing it with other people. And so I love this podcast. I love the Patreon community because I get to do something I love and just share it with other people who love it too. And our community it's tight. It's a tight-knit group that loves doing this work too. And who knows where we'll go next, but lots of fun things we've done and some fun ideas in the future too.
I know. I love our community too. I can't believe it's been going on for a year and a half now. And every month I just look so forward to, when it's time for us to gather at the end of the month. And, we actually talk about the book. We're a book club that talks about it, right? We always giggle about that we continue to focus all of our work around the book. So speaking of that, each month you select a theme for Get Literate or Get Literate Patreon community. And some are even new words that we've never heard, like flaneuring. I did think they said that correctly, or flaneuring, however we say it.
Yep, you're right.
So how do you go about selecting our theme for the month?
Yeah, this is, well, see, I'm going to say this is my favorite part, but I'm going to say that a couple of times. And you knew I was going to say that, but I love this. So I used to be one of the people that chose a word of the year. Lots of people choose that one little word, they notebook about it or scrapbook about it or wear it on a necklace, and that guides our intentions for the year. I used to do that. I used to love it. And then the pandemic came. And the word I chose for 2020 did not hold up come March. And I decided, instead of trying to hold on to that one word, that I was going to pick a word a month to guide my daily living instead, because my word just wasn't working. And I loved it. I loved the process of thinking about what the word might be. I loved thinking about how I could bring that word to life. And it all started as just a personal thing first. But I found that when I was choosing those words, I wanted to really embody that word. And so I read books that embraced that theme. I wrote in my notebook around the theme. I tried to get out and, well, not in the pandemic. I tried to do things on Zoom that embraced that theme. And that really worked for me, to having one word to guide what I wanted to be and how I wanted to feel that month. And so it seemed a natural fit when I started the Get Literate community to have us choose, or me, choose a word of the month to guide our reading and writing. And those words, I honestly, there's no special secret sauce of how those words come to be. It's kind of selfish because it's a word that I know I would love. Sometimes it's seasonal. Sometimes it is just because of something going on in my own life. Sometimes it's because I found a new word I never heard before on social media, like flaneuring or sonder. I think sonder is probably still my favorite, all those connections that we can make. And so I just keep my eyes open. I think about my own life and what word I might want. I listen to the community, and I kind of listen in our book club and our Facebook group. What are some of the things we've been talking about that we could turn into a word? And then I just keep my eyes and ears open on social media for it, which, by the way, is how I chose the word coming up for July, which no one ever, ever is going to guess, I don't think.
Oh, darn. That's always fun for us to try to guess what we think the word will be, but it sounds like this one's going to be a stumper. So,
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. I can't wait.
okay, good. And with that, I know I always look forward to the monthly book calendar. So with that theme, you always put out every day of the month, books that we could read related around that theme. So there's so many books out there. How do you go about finding those perfect books to put on that calendar every month?
Oh, that's the fun part. So I used to just put a book list out. So a list of adult books, middle grade books, picture books. And then I realized I wanted to give people a lot of choices around the theme. I don't even remember how the book calendars came to be, but I loved the idea of someone, in order to embrace our monthly theme, if they could open up a document and every day just get a little snippet about a new book that they could read that embraced the theme and might be a good fit for them. So we started that calendar idea just a couple of months into the community. And I do it differently every month, honestly. Some of the themes I let myself indulge, and I spend an afternoon in the library or a local bookstore, and I just browse and I ask people for books that they recommend on the theme. And I look through the shelves and just comb through them physically. Other times I just head online and I head to some of my favorite book bloggers, or I just go to Google. And lately I've been going to ChatGPT to see if there are some titles that I might put on my radar. But the months that I really love are the months when I know the word a little bit ahead of time, that I've already got it set. And then every day I just look and I browse and I check all the emails from the publishers and the indie bookstores and Goodreads and all of the things that come in. And I just give myself the time to sift through them, read the reviews, to go on Google Books and see if some of the opening chapters are available. And I do two things. First, I pick books that I would want to read. I said it was a little bit selfish. And then I choose books for others that might not be quite in my reading wheelhouse, like you, Dawn, knowing you love revenge and knowing you love some more mystery and suspense than I do, and knowing someone like Amy loves nonfiction and personal development, but then the other Amy loves picture books. So I try to keep the members in mind, knowing what I know about the community as well, and pick a balance that I think would fit all of us in some sort of way, but then also push our boundaries a bit and give us books that we might not know about so readily. So I like to include new titles, but I also am not afraid to go really deep into a backlist and get a book maybe that is not on everybody's radar quite yet. And then I put them together in this fun little calendar, and everyone gets it as a PDF that they can open up and just click each day on the book cover. I've got ideas for how we might put that together in a calendar over time, right? To take all of our book calendars together and have this beautiful record. I think Canva is going to help me out with that this summer.
Great. I've been collecting all of those. And the other cool thing is too, that sometimes you let us vote on the book that we're, going to read for the month. So sometimes, like you said, you selfishly pick one that from that calendar that we're all going to read for the month. But then often, other times you've had us vote, and it's always fun to see what people are going to select and, what our book ends up being for that month. So I'm glad that you do that sometimes as well.
Yeah, I love when we vote, because then
yeah.
I know, then I feel better. Like if we come to our book club and we're like, oh, this book's like, yeah, but we voted on it. This wasn't me.
Yes, you can't take it all. And I love all the extra bonuses that you have thrown in over the year and a half in our Get Literate community. We've had a chocolate tasting class. I have to say that was my favorite one. We had a sewing class. We had an actual author join us. I mean, these are all on Zoom, so you have to be creative of how we do that. What do you think's been your favorite event that we've done, or that you plan for us, or you have any up your sleeve that you're thinking of doing in the future?
Yeah, so this was hard because I loved all of them. I think I have to agree with you. The chocolate tasting was one of my favorites. I had never done anything like that before. To get the little kits delivered to those that actually wanted to taste the chocolate rather than just watch was a lot of fun. But no, I still can't narrow it down. The sewing class with Ellen Lumpkin, I think was probably my favorite experience because I never thought that I could make a weighted eye mask with my own two hands. And we did. And it came out recognizable and it works. And I've used it. But I did love meeting with Megan Tatey. Having the author in our book club was probably the best book club experience, I think, if we separate them from the others. It just added a different kind of energy. And I think one of our members said, I can't remember who, like maybe it was Kate, knowing the backstory of the author and seeing what a wonderful, kind, open person they are and just willing to talk to us about books and reading, it makes you just want to read everything they have ever written and feel so connected to them. So experience-wise, I'm voting for chocolate tasting and sewing. But author-wise, oh, I hope we get to invite more to the book club. That's my plan if I can convince them to come join us.
Awesome. Can't wait for that. So let's talk a little more about books. And, we both have a unique way of rating books. In your book journal, you've created rating by hearts, and myself, I do a devour scale. I came up with my handle for my Instagram, Dawn Devours Books, kind of just based on alliteration with my name, but also just I do read a lot and quickly. So I thought, well, how fun would that be to kind of rate on how fast I read the book, but also if I enjoyed the book. So, why do you do hearts and not number or stars?
Yeah, first of all, I think Dawn Devours Books is perfect for you. And you are
Thanks.
killing it this summer. Man, I saw that book stack on social media. You've got your work cut out for you. So the Devour scale, I think, is perfect for you. And I think the heart scale is perfect for me too. I have a real problem with the star ratings because I truly believe that the act of evaluating a book in that way, of actually rating it in a number, it's personal, right? We aren't all English professors that know how to critique writing in an academic or scholarly kind of way. When we read a book, we're rating our reaction. And yes, our reaction is tied to how the book is written and all of those things. But on a good day, I could read one book and not like it because of something with me. And then 6 months later, I could read that same book and think it's absolutely amazing. So rating it with stars and then rating it publicly and having that impact what the author's book looks like online and what the algorithm then does to show it to certain people. I just have a real problem rating it in stars as if I have that all-knowing ability to just rate in stars, meaning I'm rating their writing rather than I'm rating my reaction to it. So I tend to give 5 stars to just about everybody if I liked it, because I want to support that whole social media and the algorithm. And so my heart scale, I'm much more comfortable with. That is rating the book based on how it impacted me as a reader. Yes, if I liked it, but did I learn? Did I get a new perspective? Did it push my thinking, sometimes in a comfortable, sometimes in an uncomfortable way? I think, as I mentioned, I love the idea of bibliotherapy. I think books can help us with everything in our life. And thinking about books in heart ratings helps us make those personal connections and the personal evaluations of the book rather than just solely evaluating the writing. And so I feel better about rating in hearts because my heart scale really shows this is about me and what I think and doesn't impact the author or the performance of the book based on, you know, if I was having a bad day when I read it. So I really think the heart scale gives us more opportunity to think about the book in relation to ourselves rather than in relation to someone else on some sort of rating platform.
Yeah, I love that you said that. There's some books that are right for us at that time and some books that aren't. I've done that before where I might have put a book down and then heard about it later and picked it up and was like, oh, yeah, this is the book I need right now at this time. And so I could see where that would affect our ratings with that.
Yeah.
So speaking of ratings and books, can you believe it's our 18th book that we've been reading?
I could not believe we read that many books together. It was such a nice reflective moment to think back.
Yes. And as we are meeting on a few days with our group on that book, we're going to talk about the Five Senses put out by Gretchen Rubin. And so we'll be doing that one soon. But thinking back then all this time, what are your top 3 books and why that we've read in our book community?
So in order to do this, Dawn, I had to go back and make a list of what those books were because I thought, I don't remember what all of those 18 were. So what I'm going to do, I want to list them. I'm going to list them really quickly because I know there are Get Literate members listening, and I would love for them to think back and also choose their top 3, and then they can let us know in the comments. So I'm going to start from our most recent, read all the way to the very first book, and then I will share with you my top 3.
All right. Okay. And I'll share my top 3 as well. We'll see if we have some similarities or not.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So Life in Five Senses by Gretchen Rubin. That's our current one. Super Bloom by Megan Tatey. Glow in the Effing Dark by Tara Schuster. Beartown by Frederick Bachman. How Are You Really by Jenna Kutcher. A Wish for Winter by Viola Shipman. Rules for Visiting by Jessica Francis Kane. It Girl by Ruth Ware. The Art of Flaneuring by Erica Owen. The List That Changed My Life by Olivia Byrne. One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. Love and Saffron by Kim Fay. You Happier by Dr. Amen. The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. The Joy of Missing Out by Tanya Dalton. 30 Things I Love About Myself by Radhika Sanghani. And The Switch by Beth O'Leary. Just reading through that list, I just remember them all. I remember our book club conversations. I'm going to give you 3, but I don't know if I can decide which one is first, second, and third. And I hope that's... I
know, it's hard.
But I know the one that immediately rises to the top for me, and many others, I think, that read it, is The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. This book, it's just everything. It's a book where the main character, Julian, decides to tell his authentic, true, honest life story about where he is at the moment and write that in a notebook, the authenticity notebook, and leave it in a public place for someone to find, which someone does. And after reading Julian's story, is encouraged. Was it Julian? Or am I mixing that up with the reading list? I think it's Julian. But anyway, all these people who find the notebook end up adding their own authenticity story to the notebook. And then they come together in these really interesting ways. I loved it. I loved the power of friendship, the power of writing, the strong characters. It was just a good one. So I think that one is probably pretty close to the top. The second one I loved was A Wish for Winter by Viola Shipman. Oh, this book just got me. It just got me. It had Santa Claus. It had Michigan, which I know you are from, and now I must visit after reading how beautiful it is in all of these places. I just loved the connections that I can make, the way that I just got so into the story. And the book was such a tribute to books and reading and bookstores and bibliotherapy that it wasn't a book about books necessarily, but it definitely was a book for book lovers. And I just loved that one. And then, I had a toss up. Like, I didn't know which one to choose. Was it going to be Super Bloom by Megan Tatey? Was it Beartown by Frederick Bachman? That was such a good book club discussion on that book. But I think I have to go with Love and Saffron by Kim Fay. I love an epistolary novel and the back and forth nature between these two unlikely friends who pen palled back and forth, but never actually met in person for a really long time. That's kind of what's happening in today's world, except through Zoom, right? We have never met live, but I consider you a good friend. So
Mhm.
I just loved that about the book and the way that food and family and friendship were intertwined. And I'm a sucker for a really good realistic fiction. And looking at these titles, yeah, that's definitely what I came up with. So those are my top three, although there's a lot of runner-ups.
I bet. And it's funny because one of my top three, when I was thinking about this, is also the Authenticity Project. You mentioned, I think, that one of our themes was Sonder, and that what means the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, but somehow we're all connected. And boy, did that book really touch on that. And you really started realizing how much we are really all connected. And I loved how the notebook kept making its rounds to different people and seeing how, what they would put in it, but then how they kept connecting with each other in their lives as well. So that
Mhm.
one, I have to say, was one of my, probably my favorite of the 18 books. And so another one, you also mentioned it as well, but I would have to say Beartown. That was one that I kept kind of putting off. You heard a lot of buzz, but I kept thinking, like many people, oh, it's about hockey. My girls played soccer. I'm not a
Yes.
hockey mom. And, I don't know if I'm going to like that one, but oh, just like everyone said, it is so much more than hockey, so many great themes. And it is one that I think probably had the most discussion in our book club.
Oh, hands down.
Yes.
Yeah, we lasted a long time actually talking just about the book.
Yes, we did. And then I went on to read the other two. Oh, that whole trilogy is it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And so sad when it ended because those characters you just don't want, it's one of those books, as you say, you hug at the end and
Yes.
you don't want to forget about those characters. And then I would have to say my third favorite, or I don't even know if they're in that order, but one of the also ones that we read was The It Girl. And as you
Mhm.
mentioned, that was in the suspense, psychological thriller, revenge type books, which I do like. I'm glad we pushed you out of your comfort zone a little to read that. And that was in our month with intrigue. You had different, I believe, books that would, put that intrigue. And so The It Girl was a great one for me. I just watched Ruth Ware the other day. She was here in Michigan doing an author visit, and I was able to buy some Zoom tickets for that. And what a lovely lady and author. So she's kind of an auto buy for me. I'll continue reading hers, and I'm looking forward to reading her newest one that just came out. So, all right. So also something I was thinking about is you often ask this question to others. It's something that you have children do. It's in your book. So now it's your turn to respond. If your book stack could talk, what would it say about you?
I love that. I love that you have turned the tides on that question because it is my favorite question to ask. And it would say a couple of things. I think number one, it would say that I'm doing a pretty good job on my reading intention of reading a balance of adult literature and children's literature. I read children's literature because it literally is my job, but I know I would read it even if it wasn't. I think it adds so much to an adult reading life. And so my stack always has a balance of adult and children's literature in it. I try actually to alternate one adult book and then switch to go back and forth to keep that ratio. It would definitely say that I love realistic fiction that I can connect to and learn from. You saw my three top favorites. Those were all fiction books. So it says I may read those a little tad too much, and that I need to broaden that a little bit. Maybe suspense, maybe some thrillers. It also says I love to learn. So I didn't mention it in our book club selections, but I do love a good personal development. I loved You Happier by Dr. Amen, Gretchen Rubin's How Are You, or no, Jenna Kutcher's How Are You Really? And gosh, I love our current selection, Life in Five Senses by Gretchen Rubin, although I love everything by Gretchen Rubin. But I think it would also say I need to stop stacking up so many books and start putting the earbuds in and finally get to my goal of listening to more books. I'm awful at that. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but whenever I put a book in, I'm a multitasker, like I know you are. And when I'm listening to a podcast, I feel like I can do the dishes or fold the laundry or take a walk. I haven't been able to do that listening to a book. I don't know if I just don't have the mental bandwidth to listen and imagine and then try to do something at the same time. So I don't listen really to any books because I'm not that person that can just sit still and listen to it. And that's kind of what I need. So I did put together, because I knew you were going to ask me this question and I figured I need to have a solution. I did put together a Libro playlist of the books I wanted to read. And I've took suggestions from our group. So memoirs written by the authors themselves. I mean, how many years have I had Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights on there? Will Smith's memoir is on there. And then also books that are nonfiction, so that maybe I could just listen and still multitask because I'm not trying to categorize characters and problems and solutions. So my book stack would say stop stacking a little bit and get out the earbuds and go for a walk or sit down and listen.
Yeah, something I tried not too long ago is I had the print copy and the audio copy. So that was something that kind of worked for me as well, because when I was driving in the car, I wanted to listen, but then when I got home, I was reading. But then if I was like, I think I missed that part, because I'm like you, where I kind of lose track of some things. So I went back into the book and could read it. So if you can maybe do a print copy and audio book, that's also a suggestion I would have for you. And definitely Green Lights. That is one you'll want to keep listening to his accent and his voice and him telling his story, and such a good story it is. So I say start with that one.
Yeah, I think his will be first and then Spare.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think Spare will just have to be next.
Yes. There you go. There you go. All right. Well, we're kind of wrapping things up. Believe it or not, this is going so quickly.
Yeah.
So what are you currently reading?
Well, I am finishing up, or I've just finished up, Life in Five Senses by Gretchen Rubin for our book club. And I've just started a middle grade novel called No Matter the Distance by Cindy Baldwin. I just found this author. She wrote Where the Watermelons Grow, which was, gosh, just this beautiful middle grade book about a little girl who was struggling with her mother's mental illness and the impact that it had on her and the family and their future. It was just such a touching book that I needed to read everything else that this author has written. And so that's the book that I picked up in order to keep my kind of author obsession going, and then keep in line with my one adult book and my one middle grade book.
Awesome. Yes, I'm looking forward to talking about Life in Five Senses this later on this week. I finished that one up. And then I picked up The Celebrants by Stephen Rowley, because I also read The Guncle last year. And so this is his book out this summer. And I'm also really enjoying this one about a group of friends who decide to have live funerals for each other. One of their good friends passes away, and they have a funeral, but at a young age, during college, towards the end of their college years, and then they decide to have a pact that if they need everyone to come together because something in their life has happened, and they want to come and talk about that person and have a real life funeral, that they will do that. So far I'm about midway in the book, and I thought, what a great idea, because we often go to funerals and talk about the person, and the person obviously doesn't hear those things. So to have people hear that while they're alive is quite a neat idea. So I'm enjoying that one. So I'll put that one on your radar as well.
That's fascinating. I would definitely like that. Tell me the title and author again so I can jot that down.
Yes, The Celebrants by Stephen Rowley.
Another one to add.
I know.
I don't think I could listen to it though. I need to feel the pages on that one. That one sounds like I need to be really present for that. Oh, I love that.
It's a library book I was able to get, even though it's a newer one. So it's one I'm reading in paper as well. All right. So let's tell everybody where they can find you and how they can join our fun Get Literate Patreon community if they choose to. And give us your handles.
Yeah. So easiest place to find everything is on my website, alitlife.com. You'll get the Get Literate podcast episodes. You'll get some of the book lists that we have there, and links to my Goodreads, bookshops, all of the things. On social media, just about every platform. I'm not on TikTok yet. Do not have plans to go on TikTok, but you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AffinitoLit. And if you want to check out our Get Literate community, that is getliterate.co. And you can get access to some of the past episodes. There are a couple there that are public to give everyone a sneak peek on what the community looks like. And you can just scroll through some of our old posts and just see what's there. The book club posts, the extras. Every Sunday, I release something new, whether it's a bonus episode, some printable writing prompts, or something else I haven't thought of yet. We're doing something new for July, though. You'll be able to see what that looks like to see if you think that community would be a good place to you. We've got some fun summer plans. We are a group of pretty voracious readers and writers who give each other FOMO every day.
Yes. And I love when we come together and just also share books that we're reading, because it's such where I found quite a few, or we'll say, oh, so-and-so, you need to read this one, because we've gotten to know each other over the 18 months so well, that we can kind of know each other's reading lives and what might work for the person.
That's the best part. That's the best part.
It is. All right. Well, this has been something I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm so glad you agreed to it. It goes perfect with our Explorer theme as we, are exploring more about you and some of the backstory of where all this great fun came from. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for willing to do this.
Oh, I loved it, Dawn. Thanks for the idea. I always love chatting books with you.
Okay. All right. Take care.
You too. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing lives, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. But one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks so much for listening.